17 лютого працює медіа-центр.
It's February 17, Ukraine Media Center starts its operation. My name is Svetlana Shaparenko, and I will be talking about the aftermath of the enemy's drone strike on Chernobyl nuclear power plant. Joining us in our studio is Oleh, Korikov, head of the Ukraine State Nuclear Regulatory Inspectorate and Chief State Inspector for Nuclear and Regulation Safety. Good morning, Mr. Oleh. Good morning, glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. So let me remind you, on the night of 14th of February, the Russian drone with high explosive charge hit the sarcophagus of Chernobyl power plant and ruined the cover, ruined the roof of the cover of this isolation facility. So, Mr. Oleg, the first question is there a threat? What is the situation for the time being in Chernobyl nuclear power plant? Well, good morning. We have a little bit of time. So I would like to remind the audience that there is a little bit of a history behind this question. First of all, Chernobyl nuclear power plant was built back in the Soviet times, and the reactor number 4, well, there were 4 reactors in operation, and there was an accident in reactor number 4 back in the year 1986, 4th level at the INES scale, high threat to life and health of people and high radiation threat. Well, the similar or the same classification, so grade 7, was happening at the Fukushima nuclear power plant. So there was an accident, all of the reactors were stopped at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. Meanwhile, the mitigation of consequences was taking place back in the Soviet time to ensure the recommission of other 3 reactors that were not actually damaged as a result of the accident. But given the consequences, given the circumstances of high level of radiation that posed significant risks to life and health, the decision was made to build an isolating structure, which is called the object confinement, that was implemented in record terms in order to decrease the impact of radiation so that other 3 reactors could be operated. And consequently, after the construction of the project confinement, the operation of Chernobyl nuclear power plant was resumed. The other 3 reactors were in operation for a certain period. However, the radiation level was a little bit above those that work within the standards. And there was a political decision made to cease any operations at Chernobyl nuclear power plant. The last reactor was stopped back in the year 2003. And in parallel, there was another decision made to decrease the influence of radiation or impact of radiation over the environment and to dismantle further on the confinement facilities. So the decision was made to build the new shelter, new confinement that would, on one hand, ensure the conditions of proper control of the fuel masses that were staying in the ruined reactor number 4 to decrease their impact on environment. And this arc confinement allows first isolating, and then there is a number of other systems that ensure the possibility of further dismantling of unstable structures that are being operated currently at the fourth reactor. So from the safety perspective, we got a facility that, given its constructive solutions and installed systems, ensures the transformation of Chernobyl nuclear power plant from a ruined reactor number 4 into an environmentally safe system. So what actually has happened? The drone attacked the arc confinement. There was a direct strike that resulted in an orifice in this facility, and on top of that there was a fire that significantly damaged the cover along with the internal structures. Hoist equipment was also damaged that was installed to continue the dismantling operations. There are also problems with power supply. Now the rescue works are underway. Some of the electrical equipment is currently without power supply, and because the water is used to put out fire, and now the function is lost that was contemplated for confinement facility. So basically the function of isolation, now there is a hole and all of the radioactive agents can go through that hole in the air. Currently, for what we know, there is no such leak, there are no casualties, and respectively, the radiation level is within those limits that existed before the drone strike. However, now we cannot safely state what would be now the way we work to transform the confinement facility into an environmentally safe facility. The arc is damaged, the ventilation systems are out of order, along with other systems that were designed to ensure the development of the further strategy of transformation of confinement into an environmentally safe facility. So basically, what else can be said? It's yet another step, diplomatically saying, an irresponsible step in the direction of ruining of principles of radiation safety, internationally recognized standards of radiation safety by aggressor country, and there is no assessment made by the international institutions that was supposed to be given at the very beginning of the war, when the occupiers were invading our territory through Chernobyl exclusion zone, when they were driving tanks around the platform of nuclear power plant, around the reactors, around the confinement facility, when they were digging trenches in the territory of Chernobyl nuclear power plant and the points of temporary localization of nuclear waste. And there was no strict reaction back then. The aggressor country was not being held accountable back then. Then there was a situation with shelling and capturing of Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, illegal capture, transformation of it into a military base. Again, what they do to the personnel there, all those things were left unaccounted for. There was no adequate reaction on part of the global community. And now we can add about what's going on with the sources of ionizing radiation in the bases of Lipsy, Kharkiv. The Kharkiv Radiation Institute, the nuclear reactor, was left without power supply multiple times there. And in Kiev, in the Institute of Radiation Research, the power supply was lost as a result of Russian attacks. So again, there was no clear reaction. No one is being held accountable. And the aggressor country continues to diplomatically saying neglecting the principles of nuclear and radiation safety. This is how I can summarize it. Thank you. But I would like to get back to Chernobyl nuclear power plant. For what I understand, the fire is being still put out. Do the firefighters give any forecast about when the fire can be fully put out and when we can get access to the facility to evaluate the losses and damage? Well, according to the legislation of Ukraine, an operations headquarters is being established to manage this emergency. We've classified what's going on now as an emergency in the facility. Relevant capabilities are being engaged on part of the State Emergency Service of Ukraine to localize and liquidate the fire. The situation continues to be under control. There are no casualties. There are no increased doses of radiation. The radiation level is within the standards, and so basically as of this morning we had information that there is no smoldering in the morning. The thermal vision photography is being conducted, so there is no strict point of view from which we can observe everything. We cannot observe the hole from the top of the arc. So we use drones to manage all of the works as long as we apply the thermal photography. So this morning we are about to be getting updates, and I would recommend inquiring operation headquarters about the state of affairs at the facility. So you've mentioned that the radiation level is within the standards as it used to be before the strike. So can the situation change? After all, the confinement was damaged. Well, basically the confinement itself, the safe confinement, it's made of unstable structures. They were stabilized, however, the safety of those unstable structures was established before the year 2003, and before that phase, the operating organization had to develop an action plan to stabilize those structures or to dismantle them. Due to a number of objective reasons, such as pandemics, and the full-scale invasion by Russian Federation, and the lack of funds, the operating organization failed to fully ensure the work under this or that option, but there was a number of monitoring activities undertaken, and given we have the news, this safe confinement, a decision was made to postpone all those activities until the year 2029 to continue working with the donors to make sure the works are funded, as well as with the designing organizations, with the contractors who are being involved in the works. Now the situation is completely different. In fact, we have, or like the new confinement facility doesn't ensure its safe operation, it doesn't fulfill its functions that were contemplated. So now we're getting back to this matter of the unsafe structures, and given the loss of safety, given the loss of coverage, the matter of unstable structure is gaining an additional meaning, I would say. So it becomes real urgent, and so far we cannot give a proper assessment of the issues. So far the liquidation of or mitigation of consequences of this emergency is not yet over, and as soon as it's being mitigated, the operation organization will make its assessment, and we will be able to understand how do we move forward in this situation. However, the threat is pretty high. We will have to just assess the level of threat. So what was the reaction of IAEA to this aggression, act of aggression by Russia? Well, all of the stakeholders, they state that it's not safe, but no actions are undertaken. So in continuation of IAEA topic, let's talk about the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. There was a delay with rotation of IAEA personnel. What can be the consequences and further decisions? Well, thank you for your question. In Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, we have a permanent IAEA monitoring mission that arrived upon invitation of Ukraine. So Ukraine, starting from September 2022, was inviting the representatives of IAEA, and as long as it's a Ukrainian power plant, the IAEA team visits on a rotation basis the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant through the territory of Ukraine, and respectively. Now I'll just remind you that last time when there was a rotation, there was an incident. An IAEA vehicle was attacked by a drone on its way to the territory under Ukrainian control. Back then, that dangerous case has become a topic of discussion during the meeting of the Council of the Directors of IAEA that took place on the 12th of December. And the case of a drone attack on the IAEA vehicle, it was a provocation. There were big letters on that vehicle saying IAEA, so the attack has taken place on the 10th of December. And respectively, starting from the 10th of December, those IAEA experts who arrived there, they are still there. Rafael Mariano Grossi, during his visit to Ukraine a couple of weeks ago, he brought a team that was supposed to go to Zaporizhia nuclear power plant that is temporarily occupied to replace that personnel that was staying there for almost 2 months. But due to such a provocative position of the aggressor rotation was postponed once and then for the second time, and until this moment it hasn't still happened. In our opinion, those are the steps taken by the aggressor to disrupt the situation, to exercise pressure over IAEA so that they change their route. But we all understand, along with IAEA, that change of route, for example, through Sevastopol or otherwise, is the representation of ruination of the principles of territorial integrity of Ukraine, and rotation in Ukrainian nuclear facility should be happening only through Ukrainian territory. Ukraine suggested different ways of solution, but currently the solution of this matter is in the political dimension, and I would rather stop my comments here. Thank you, dear colleagues. Do we have any questions on the floor? If you do, please raise your hands so you can be given the microphone and ask your questions. Good morning, Yulia Zubchenko, Espresso channel. So how dangerous is the hole in the sarcophagus itself? How long is it going to take to fix it, and how much is it going to cost? Well, first of all, let's just make sure we use the proper terms. So there is the confinement and there is a sarcophagus. The sarcophagus was construction. It was finalized in 1987, and then the stabilization of the structures was carried on there. So those are two different structures. Before that, we were using this system, the new Safe Confinement, as a joint system. So currently, the drone inflicted no damage on the sarcophagus itself. So drone hit only the arc facility. So there is a damage of, so to say, of the arc itself. The new Safe Confinement was damaged. There is a hole in the roof of the new Safe Confinement, not the sarcophagus itself. The sarcophagus, during the years of operation, in the absence of the arc, degraded to a certain extent because it was a quick solution back in its day, and it was contemplated that further works would be taken place to mitigate the consequences of impact of reactor number 4 on the environment. So this is my answer to your question. Thank you. Are there any more questions on the floor? So now that we don't have any more questions, Mr. Oleh, let me thank you, and let me remind our spectators that we were talking with Mr. Oleh Korikov, the head of Ukraine's State Nuclear Regulatory Inspectorate and Chief State Inspector for Nuclear Radiation Safety of Ukraine. And at 1100, we will discuss the results